Great, familiar face. Hi, Veronica. Perfect. Can you unmute yourself? I can ask. Maybe that helps. Okay, you're still muted. Let me also get.
Sorry.
Hello. Here
Hello.
we go. Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Super.
Sorry.
And Katerina also joining.
Hey, I'm
Hey,
here.
great,
Hey.
amazing. Good you're here. Super. Yes, that's amazing. Well, let me just really quickly introduce introduce you from what I pulled from the web and what you provided to me. So Katerina, you can read the names. Veronica first. I hope I pronounced your name right. Melkozerova, is that well done? Yeah, pretty good. Good, thumbs up. Yes, so you're a Kiev-based journalist and the executive editor of the New Voice of Ukraine. You've contributed to multiple international publications as well. I saw some also written on the war, including NBC News, Politico, Vice, and several others. You were working at the Kiev Post from June 2015 until 2018, and won the top Ukrainian journalist contest Chest Professi. So that's also a wonderful accomplishment. And Katerina Sergatskova, you're also a Ukrainian journalist, TV presenter, editor-in-chief, and co-founder of Zabarona.com, board member of Hromadske, and co-founder of the 2402 Emergency Fund for Journalists. So there's much more. If you want to know more about them, go check their websites out. We'll put them in the chat for sure. Anything already that you want to add there, Katerina? Did I see you maybe want to say something?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me to the event. I can say that Zabarona Media is a news media outlet that emerged in 2017, and it covers, I would say, pretty difficult topics in Ukraine and across the post-Soviet countries, such as human rights violations, far-right and radical movements, etc. So we try to go in the topics that that most of the journalists in Ukraine wouldn't go. But after Russia decided to invade Ukraine, we switched more to cover the war against Ukraine, and we are covering human rights violations committed by Russians and war crimes of Russian army. So that's what we are doing now. And our 2402 fund is aimed to help Ukrainian journalists to get safety kits, bulletproof vests, and to cover the war in the war zones, which is the whole country. Yeah, we collect funds from across the globe to get it and to get our journalists those safety kits and make them report from the war zones.
Great, thank you. And Veronica, could you say a bit more on what your focus is and what New Voice Ukraine's focus is?
So the New Voice Ukraine is pretty young. We are only like 6 months old. We are an English version of one of the top Ukrainian language media outlets, which is just NVUA. And we mostly focus on covering Ukraine for the international audience and for the countries that are interested in Ukraine. And our kind of thing is that we translate and deliver exclusive materials by top Ukrainian journalists you cannot actually read anywhere else, because those people are usually writing in English or in Ukrainian, and we translate them. So it's kind of our thing.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Yeah. I asked you on because, as it's often said, like truth is the first casualty of war, of course, and we're dealing with a flood of narrative warfare, both from, of course, Russian propaganda that we have to learn to see through what the influences are, And especially in this post-truth world with social media now, also here, it's becoming harder and harder to, for most people who are not familiar with the narrative being pushed to kind of weed through all the chaff and the distortion and the noise to really come to a sense of what is actually true. So today I was hoping that we could speak to that, like partly the information space, what it is right now, but equally also, as you suggested, Katerina, to talk a bit about what it's like to be a journalist in Ukraine right now, reporting on this war. And I think that's going to be like a really good place to start. How easy is it? Like other taboos, as you say, you cover very difficult topics. So please share to our audience, many from the West here who don't know what that's like and what you're dealing with. So. Yes, for you, Katerina. Oh, sorry, the muting. Gosh, this. Yeah, you can just keep yourselves unmuted. I think you can unmute yourself now.
Yeah, no.
Perfect. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can start from the beginning, because in the morning, 24 February, we all woke up almost like absolutely vulnerable. We didn't know what exactly to do, because we just Russia invaded our country, and we've heard sounds of explosions. And when you are a journalist, you have a feeling that you have to do something right now. But at the same time, you understand that you're in the same situation as like everybody in the country, and you can be killed just the next minute. It could be everything. It can happen. And I think this is something about journalism in Ukraine. We are still try to figure out how like to be a citizen, or to be a journalist, or just to find a place where to hide from bombs in a bomb shelter. And this was the biggest challenge, I think, and it didn't change since then, except that most of Ukrainian journalists now have protection with the bulletproof vests and helmets. It can protect us from some particles of the rocket. And we can go to the war zones. So now we have those different war zones. It's Donbass, it's in the south of Ukraine. So we know where is worst and where is more safe, and that's how we can work.
Right.
So yeah.
Just so the audience know, I follow you on Twitter, and I saw you post pictures. You were close to the front lines, right? In these past weeks. Where are you now? Are you still in the neighborhood there?
No, right now I'm actually in the safest place in Ukraine. It's Zakarpattia, near the Romanian and Hungarian border. And this is this is weird to discuss, but I should say that because of Prime Minister of Hungarian Parliament is a big friend of Putin, Russia doesn't shell at this region because it's very close to the border, and there are a lot of Hungarian citizens who live there, and yeah. But just a week ago, I've been to Mykolaiv region. It's very close to the Kherson region, and people there are suffered from constant shellings from the Russian side, from the occupied territories. Yeah, so I think the life of Ukrainian journalists changed radically, and we have a very different situation than it was before. Like since 2014, we had a war in Donbass.
Yeah.
But it was very different from what we have now. So it's like this war is the deadliest war in the century. Actually, it's
Yeah.
worse than it is with ISIS in Syria and Iraq.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And for you, Veronica, how's life for you as a journalist changed since February?
Well, my life is almost the same as Katerina's, except of traveling to the war front, because I'm mostly focused as like editing stories of others now, and also my unique experience is that I stayed in Kiev for the whole time when it was besieged by Russians, and I documented how the city changed, and it was a really unique experience for a Kiev native that I was born in Kiev, and when my city got attacked, I decided to stay and report about what was happening. And I would say that I never expected how unite we can become in the face of such a horrible aggression. And Kievans proved it to me, because we were like one fist, and like people were some were buying groceries for the elderly, others were protecting the city, some were like digging trenches, mining areas. We still have like many parks and recreation zones full of mines since then. And I would say that it was a very strange positive and negative experience, because it's like an emotional swing. At some day you are like feeling this great patriotism and think that you can do anything, that your people are capable of like doing anything they want and they can. And the other day shelling was that intense outside in the outskirts of Kiev, that I was like feeling that I get crazy a bit, because I really didn't know when and how it would stop. So this is what I feel.
Thank you. Yeah, I can imagine that uncertainty is like a very strange experience, with and a great contrast, of course, of the experience in the West when we talk about the war. And I think that's actually a good thing to go to, because you both, and I know especially you, Veronica, like really look at Western media and how the reporting on the war is done. So what have you noticed from the Ukrainian viewpoint, like how the reporting has developed? And maybe you can point to different phases in that. So is that something that you have, what are your views on that? Katerina, you want to take this one?
Well, I thought you will ask Veronica, because
Yeah, I did, but she muted herself. So
okay. Yeah. I think I have a lot to say about Western coverage. We are Ukrainian journalists who used to be who used to help the Westerners, not only from the West, okay, so it's like from around the world. We help them with information, with contacts, with context, with everything they need to know about Ukraine and what's going on. And this is not a job. It's just you feel that you have to share some information about that, because you know everything. Every building in Kiev and its history. Lots of different citizens and people and organizations, because you just live here. That's why you know everything and you want to help. But in the first phase of war, like first month of the war, it was kind of our duty to help. And then you understand that you have, like, I don't talk about myself. I'm okay, but lots of our journalists just didn't have money to exist, to buy food, to buy different goods. And you know that Western journalists, they just they don't want to pay to this kind of help, or they think that Ukrainian journalists are biased because they live in Ukraine. I heard about that so many times, and I just have to admit that there is something in different editorial teams across the globe, mostly in the Western newspapers, um, that we are biased because we're just Ukrainians. And when I hear something like that from my colleagues, I try to explain them. Okay, if you're an American journalist, you're American. You live in the U.S. And someone tried to hijack the White House. Someone tried to break the law inside the U.S. and you're the U.S. journalist. Are you biased by that? If you have, democratic values and you just know that you shouldn't break the law. And I think this is something that can make difference, because when you're talking about journalists from the so-called first world countries, in Ukraine we have the same values and the same democratic views, and we have a right to write about our country and what's going on, and we know better why this is happening, why Russia decided to invade Ukraine, right? So this is, I think this is a great discussion that should that should be inside the wider journalist communities, actually.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Do you want to share something on that as well, Veronica?
Yes, I want to say that I also heard about us being biased, and also I had a personal experience of alert legislative teams of the very big Western media alerting my editors about a Ukrainian expert, which he's not good for the story because he's a Ukrainian expert. So the world media have been stripping Ukrainians out of our own agency, and at the same time they are being many of them are still considering our regions as some kind of one post-Soviet space where Russia for some reason still has this rights of hegemony, which can control, which can invade other lands. Some of them, like maybe Reuters. I know that many people have a lot of questions for Reuters coverage recently.
Yes.
Because Reuters claims that it wants to present both sides of the story, and this both sideism is actually pretty harmful when there is a case of very, very strict breaking of the law, of the territorial integrity, of occupation, of invasion. I would say that if some country invades another country, it loses the right to be presented in the story equally, because I wouldn't say like that a material of something like, well, Nazi Germany claims that Poland has provoked the war would look good right now. Because for me, some world media, how they present a story about Ukraine really matters, because until this day, they call Russian army Russian separatists, like pro-Russian separatists, or even Ukrainian separatists, as AFP recently did in one of these breaking news tweets they like so much. So yes, I would say that by stripping Ukraine of its own agency and by inaccurately reporting on the region, because they don't know context, they don't orient in the modern realities of these countries, and at the same time they're stuck in this post-Sovietism, they do actually harm sometimes. So
yeah, thanks for bringing that point up. I mean, it's so important. It's something I've noticed as well, that often, not just in the media, but even in different meetings where there is talk about the war, talk about the invasion, and sometimes without even Ukrainian in the room, which I found quite striking, actually, and surprising. But equally, as you say, in the media, and especially where we can connect to this phenomenon of what has, I think, been termed West-splaining sometimes, about how Ukraine should be acting, how they should be offering up territory and cede it, and how they should be kept from humiliating Putin, for example. And again, often without any Ukrainian voices in that discussion. So, Katya, I see you unmute yourself, so waiting to jump in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to what Verokin said. That actually Reuters behavior, let's say so, is like Red Cross behavior, right? It's both sides. Like okay, we are neutral and we go here and there, but it is not so simple, and I think that it is better to have a coverage from the occupied territories than to do not have it. And sometimes, I mean, journalists who work for Reuters, they have they know how to do journalism. They know the rules and etc. It just depends on captions to the photographs, where it was captured. For example, when you say that it is Mariupol, Donetsk People Republic, it is, 1 point. It can be that, because Donetsk People Republic just doesn't exist. And the other thing is to say that Mariupol, Ukraine, or temporarily occupied by Russia, and it's different. But you can see the picture. You can see the drama theater in Mariupol, how it was destroyed, where killed people lying. So different things that you can you can just take and analyze it. In 2014, I worked in the occupied territories in Donetsk, and I've seen everything, like terror from Russians and the Donetsk People Republics people. I've seen deaths, and I can tell that I've seen the the beginning of this story, how the war began, and it is very we really need that conversation about captions and about how this coverage is, is done by the big international media. We really need it because we really have some questions. But at the same time, I think it is great that we can have just information from the other side. So yeah, that is my point. I think it could be important for understanding that it's not so easy.
Yes, no, thanks for highlighting that. And this perhaps connects also quite well to the Russian propaganda that sometimes, or sometimes actually quite often, manages to make its way into the stories through this both sidesism approach that some media have. What is your experience of this? Do you feel when Russian propaganda comes in, or like historical narratives, false historical narratives come in, that this is also your job to kind of jump into it, fight it? Can you name a couple of examples of what some of these really tenacious narratives are that simply don't seem to go away? And Veronica, maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, I would say that why I am not a fan of the both sides of the story when one side actually violated the law and invaded another country. I think that both sides of the story is always good, but there are exceptions. And unlike Red Cross, which actually saves lives, sometimes. Those agencies who get the unique access to the occupied territories, I would say that they are doing not only the mission, but they also are getting exclusives. And the fact that sometimes they publish openly Russian propaganda because they want to remain this to keep this exclusive access. This is really damaging to the people's minds all over the world, because they like mix up the reality. Because what Russia is doing with its propaganda, it doesn't even try to persuade you that Russia is right. It tries to persuade you that you cannot trust anyone. You cannot say that white is white and black is black, because it's not true, because white can be black. It's like this kind of example, but still I have a concrete example. When Mariupol fell and Russians occupied it completely, one of the first things they started doing is that they started looting Mariupol port, because it was really like one of the wealthiest enterprises in the city. It worked mostly for Akhmetov's, it's our oligarch, Akhmetov's enterprises of metal production, steel production. And what it first did, the first thing they did is not that like restoring water supplies, restoring electricity, of giving people like some food en masse. What they did first, they started looting and stealing Akhmetov's basically metal and steel. And what Reuters did, they reported a short story about how the first commercial ship left Mariupol with the metal cargo, and the ship is going to Russia. So if I was a person from Brazil, for example, or from some Asian countries that are not that quite interested in Ukraine, but for example, they are interested in metal production, what I see is that first thing that happened after Russia occupied Mariupol, they started working again. They're already exporting goods. That's great, right? But there was no Ukrainian side in that story present that would say that this is the city that was occupied by Russia, that this was like materials stolen from Ukraine, from Ukrainian private businesses, largest ones. There was nothing like that, not context, nothing, just this kind of story. And I caught Reuters multiple times doing that. And I think that misreporting stories and leaving stories out of context just to keep this opportunity to get a unique access to the occupied territories is quite a dangerous path when it comes to journalism, not activism like Red Cross, for example.
Thank you. Yeah, Katerina, do you want to add to that? I see you nodding vigorously.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely true. That if you don't know the context, you will get wrong decision on that. So yeah, that's how it works. But actually, the worst thing that we have almost no coverage. I mean, decent coverage from the other side, from the occupied territories, and sometimes it takes weeks to have a conversation with the people who live on the occupied territories, for example in Kherson, because they just don't have internet connection, mobile connection, electricity, and they just can't, talk about what they are going through because of the Russian invasion, and sometimes they are kidnapped by Russia just because they are pro-Ukrainian. So yeah, I would say that it is very difficult to work in such circumstances. And yeah, we still have to figure out how to do that, and how to raise awareness on Ukraine. And maybe it's a bit different topic, but I feel that like last month or maybe 2 months, there was a feeling that the world is so tired of Ukraine and the war, that I just in the beginning I was getting like hundreds of requests just to go on air, writing articles, op-eds and everything. And now it's just slowly going down, and nobody's interested in Ukrainian coverage. And foreigners who are living in Ukraine, they also don't do that amount of stories. So yeah, and I thought about COVID times. It's funny, but there is lots of in common between the war in Ukraine and COVID, because COVID-19 was the deadliest threat to the world in 2020 and last year. And the war in Ukraine is actually more dangerous than COVID for the world. But it had the same wave of coverage. In the beginning, everybody was writing about COVID and what's going on and how to deal with that and how many deaths were across the globe, etc.
Yeah.
And the same with Ukraine, because the war didn't stop. I mean, it's every day people are suffering from different things because of Russia, but the world just don't want to listen it anymore, because they're pretty out of it, and we always say in Ukraine that okay, just ask Ukrainians how they are tired of the war. So yeah, and I guess the answer to this challenge is to cover not only breaking news,
Right. Yeah.
but just to think about food crisis, energy crisis, um, economic crisis that was fueled by Russian invasion. We have to write and say about so many things that are not said yet,
Yeah.
because we are all in the breaking news, but we have so many things under
Yeah.
break.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for thanks for saying that again. And if we look towards the future, I mean, Timothy Snyder did, for example, if we look at what narratives, I mean, it will come in the news cycles, sometimes like through really bad news, if another, bomb hits a theater and there's lots of civilian deaths involved, for example, then everybody sits up and jumps up again. But some of these news stories, of course, develop very slowly. They kind of go on, they're hard to kind of track down in a cause and effect sense. And it's a bit of the the dynamics that the media and the news cycle kind of lives through, and reporting lives through. But if we look to the future, what do you think are some of these narratives that need to be avoided? And here, coming back to it was a tweet thread by Timothy Snyder, who said, like, Putin has a hunger plan. I don't know if you've seen it, where basically, like, constantly not. Yeah, exactly. So here again is one that we can see coming down the road. The Russians are gonna try to blame Ukraine for the food crisis and the West and the sanctions, etc. So is this something you're already thinking about? Is this something that can already be kind of countered or be worked with in some ways? And yeah, maybe Veronica, you have some thoughts about that one, and maybe you know of different narratives that you can already see, also seen through the lens of this fatigue, for example, what needs to be kept alive and what needs to really be fueled. So yeah, there's a lot in there, but I hope you can work with the question.
Yes, I definitely see that. I think the problem is that audience is driven by news cycles, and there's so much happening in the world, especially in first world countries, that they do not always care about some problems they are presented or they see as local problems. And I think that's the main mistake in the media make right now is that they still present Ukrainian, like Russia's war against Ukraine, as a local conflict, while Russia has already shown that this time it's something bigger. This time it's the campaign against the West. Even when Russia's like getting some minor defeats or some failures on the battlefield, Russia always says that it doesn't it wasn't Ukraine who caused the defeat to Russia. It was the West, it was NATO, it was like this. And if I was like, if I were a journalist of a huge media corporation or like an editor of a huge media corporation, I would explain to the audience that we're all connected, that if something bad is happening in the country, then inflation is going to suck the whole world. And that's not because of the West or Ukraine, it's because of the invasion. And Russia is now saying that basically we have the right to invade Ukraine. We have the right to break international laws. And if something like similar happens to Russia, Russia's like, oh, everyone else is breaking the law, everyone else is bad, and we're not, because there is like Russophobia in all over the world, like spreading because like we're daring to fight back. And not only Ukraine, but also the Western countries. And if like the world explains to the audience that Russia has caused energy crisis, Russia has probably caused a hunger all over the world. Like, I mean, the Africa and Asian countries, Syria, but we Ukraine. We've missed the time when we had this opportunity to explain the real cause of the hunger to those countries mostly affected by it. And now African countries and Syria and some Arab countries who still think of the world in terms of like 50 years ago, that they still do not make any distinction between USSR and Russia, for example. They see all of us as USSR, and I would not like blame them, because many of Ukrainians, they like think of Africa as a country too. And I think that we failed to explain who caused this whole pain to the world. And now Russia has won mostly poorer countries, and with the help of those politicians it pays and supports, mostly dictatorships. Russia's causing a lot of stir and making a lot of money again by, for example, selling Ukrainian grains stolen. And nobody can do anything with that, because the world still keeps reacting on Russia's actions, and reacting is always like slower, and nobody would dare to break the international law the same way as Russia's doing it. And yeah, I think that's why we have what we have.
Yeah, thanks. Did you want to add anything to that, Katerina? So you laugh also a couple of times to reaction to Veronica.
No, just laughing about Africa country. Yeah, because I mean that's it. That's how it works. We cannot blame people from different situations. But still, I know that in the African countries, and not only there, in the China, for example, they are full of Russian propaganda that say that coronavirus was created in Ukraine in those American laboratories, and and this is the explanation of why Russia invaded Ukraine, right? So this is absolutely wild, and but you cannot deal with that. It's just QAnon across the globe, So yeah, so we but I think the mission of journalism in Ukraine and in the West is to explain people why Russia invaded Ukraine. And we don't have just one answer. We have lots of answers. It's because Russia thinks that it is the country that is the best in the region, the largest in the region, and the country that have a rights on all the countries who were inside the USSR. And it means not only Belarus or Georgia, but Latvia, Lithuania, Baltics countries, Czech Republic, you name it, right? So all the Soviet bloc is in there, including Germany. So yeah, but I think the West don't get it still. They still think that this is a local conflict.
Yeah, and how can that change? You touched upon the mindset of, let's call it, the imperial Russian mindset, which we've been talking about this quite a bit earlier in the day, about the cultural codes, the history, etc., that fuels that why these wars keep happening again and again and again. And it seems to me that almost we're zeroing in that this as the heart of the issue to some extent. What is your understanding, also with your knowledge about the propaganda that floats around and the lack of agency? Veronica, you already pointed out the apathy that happens by being fueled, conflicting stories, etc. What is your thinking about how to change that? Because it seems if this doesn't change, this will just keep coming back in history again, and again. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Veronica. Yeah, big one, right? Yeah.
I actually don't have like this direct answer to this question because it's very hard. I think that why Russian propaganda is so successful in many countries, including the West, is that it always uses whataboutism as the main tool. It always makes Ukrainian-Russian war about like something else, not Ukraine, but United States, for example, or NATO, who provoked Russia. And they're saying it like that. It sounds stupid, illogical, but still, when they make this accent that it's our for example, for the Fox viewer or watcher of the Fox News, Russian propaganda will always like that. Just like Democrats are always messing up with Russia, trying to like control Europe, trying to spend our money abroad in the conflicts. So
right.
they're
They're
like,
the victims.
huh?
They are the victims.
Yeah, like they're trying to trigger these strings of local conflicts and local unrests to use them to harm Ukraine, to like divert attention to something else, and always make this problem because, you know, each country only interested in another country problems if it somehow affects them or mirrors their own problems, because we cannot function like on empathy en masse, because we have our own problems. We have like bills, we have to pay for utilities, we have to pay taxes, we have to buy food, and this is like our essential problems. And when we don't have enough, when we have like oil prices rising, gas prices rising, our desire to support some like shithole country overseas is like is lacking. And Russia's propaganda is using that. And of course, also, while facts are boring, Russian propaganda uses like wildest conspiracy theories. And it's always interesting. It's always like vibrant. It's always like, you know, this movie made by Hollywood. So people got interesting. If I came to like a national television and say like, hey, Russia invaded Ukraine because Ukraine has good resources, it is developed, and Russia's like not developing its regions at all, and instead it prefers to come and invade and just to destroy, to keep the influence, or to restore the empire, because that's how Russia functions. That's how the imperial brain functions. They would say, okay, and turn the TV on the another channel. But if like Margarita Simonyan or somebody like that with the perfect English and Western education will come and say, hey, we found United States biolabs that were located near Kyiv, and they were creating mutated birds to attack Russian population because they knew that Russian blood has something specific in it, and that's how they trained birds to attack Russians. And whole like defense ministry spokesperson is going to confirm that, saying that some geese were migrating from Ukrainian south to Russia. That's quite entertaining. And this is what Russian propaganda is doing. They like put a bet on entertainment and of course on bad education. So I don't know actually how we can counter this problem right now, because facts are boring. So yeah, this is my answer.
Okay, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I just wanted to add that press don't solve the problems, right? We just a mirror, and we just, you know, this is like bad news for the societies, that we really want to change something, because we like journalists know more than than most of the people. But we cannot change it. We just can say that he did that and they responded like that, and etc. And the thing is that we really want someone to change something. That's why we are doing our work. We try to to collect evidence of war crimes and of violations, and to show you, like, that's what Russia is doing. That's why this all is happening. And we expect that, I don't know, the president of France, or or a prime minister of chancellor of Germany, they will read it, and they will make decisions that will be helpful for solving the problems. And yeah, I cannot mean that journalists are very tired to do this work because
I can imagine, yeah.
No response on that. And yeah, it will be really great if people who make decisions can, read proper journalism to make proper decisions.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, I do see, like, when you say, Veronica, facts are boring, there is a whole new niche here again, also, that we've seen pop up, like especially through social media. All the memes, I think, in one area where Ukraine and its information army has been incredibly successful, and of course these are not journalists, but is the memes, and for example showing the photos of all dogs, cats being rescued. Especially, I mean, my Twitter timeline is just filled with cute animals, and in the hands of Ukrainian soldiers. So in that sense, like, the emotion, it does matter, and it has shifted things as well. I do believe it has kept people sitting up, to some extent. And coming back to the shifting of the narratives, I also see that, for example, when the call for Ukraine to cede territory, for example, it did have a peak moment, and then it did shift. Unfortunately, it was also because of Russian war crimes in Irpin, Bucha, for example. But it seems there is definitely more power than you made it sound at this point. So I hope you're not getting too discouraged by your own story, at least. We have some questions from the audience. Are you happy to take those? We have about 8 minutes left before we're at the hour. Not so much in the chat, but one person has raised their hand. So let's see. Evgeny, hold on. Can you unmute yourself, Evgeny?
Yes, I thank you so much for this section. Thank you for journalists. It's a terrible thing came to me, that even the main topic of this event is help to Ukraine. It is very important. It is really very important to help to Ukraine, but much more, or maybe just more important thing is to change minds of old politicians, because we in Russia were in protest for last, I'm afraid, 15 years on the streets and so on, and we couldn't understand why there is no reaction at all from Western country. When I talked to Western people, Western politicians 10 years ago, they told that for us is main important thing is to keep your nuclear power within your borders and nothing else. This is not our business. This is your business. Now they talk that this is Ukraine business and business of small community like this. So this is very important to help Ukraine, but it's much more important to make strongest power in the world to take attention to this evil and to change their mind about it. Not to ask Ukraine and all people, all real people, people of goodwill of the globe to help Ukrainians and to sell, to pay a huge money and to sell gas, oil, and so on.
Excuse me, Evgeny, what is your exact question? Because you just
this is not question. This is just the idea came to me after 5 hours, yes, of this event.
Okay.
It is very important to help to Ukraine, but much more important to change minds of world politicians. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Does anybody else have a question, a terse one? Because otherwise, I have one myself. Put it in the chat so I can actually see it.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I don't think that there is something more important than to help Ukraine. I think this is pretty equal. I mean, it could be at the same time to help Ukraine and to change something in the world politics on how to react on such genocides. And it's not only about Russian genocide against Ukraine. We know about another genocides in the world. So yeah, I guess this is just something that should be, that people should raise awareness on, but one doesn't accept another.
Yes, I agree about the most important. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good. Yeah, final question. We got about 3 more minutes. I'm curious to like your vision for the future here in the near term. I know that I think it's somewhere in the 80 percentile, somewhere that Ukrainians think about victory. That victory is possible, and so I want to also know how do you view this? What is possible going forward in this war?
I can say.
Okay.
I think we don't have like I will always say that we don't have other options. I mean, to win is to survive, and this how we like think when you're in Ukraine or you're outside of the country. We don't have the option to surrender to Russia or make compromises with Russia on some territories, because the thing is that Russia wants to destroy everybody who think different from Russia, and it's mostly the whole Ukraine and the whole world that that support Ukraine, and that's why we don't think that Russia will stop on Ukraine and it will go west, because the enemy of Russia is not Ukraine. It's actually the whole so-called Western world with the democratic values, with the values of human rights, equality. Just it's some basics that Russia is against, because I don't know why. I mean, it is something crazy to me to understand, but they choose they path, and it is path against the like human values actually.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
values very important. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I think that we don't have an option to to be defeated. Yeah.
Thank you, Veronica.
I also think that we don't have an option, the other option, but I think that if Russia succeeds in Ukraine, it's gonna start very bad processes in the world, because we have a lot of autocrats and dictators other than Putin in the world. And if they see that Russia got away with all the genocide, all what happened in Ukraine, they will try to reshuffle world's map, because why not? Russia did it, so we can do it also. And I think that by invading Ukraine, invading Georgia, Russia has showed that it can flourish in the unstable world, because the ruling class of Russia enjoys full power over miserable people, and the more miserable those people are, including Russians, the more money Russian elites will have. And unfortunately, for many years before the full-scale invasion of February, Western elites were also not so quite unhappy with what Russia was doing, and Ukraine also, in terms of, I would say that everyone is connected in this world, and by storing money stolen from Russians, stolen from Ukrainians, Western countries, by not imposing so strict sanctions on Russia after the occupation of Crimea, by restoring the relations with Russia after what happened in Georgia, the world said to the Kremlin basically that everything's okay, you can continue. And while Ukrainians were screaming, don't build Nord Stream 2, it's going to end badly for you. It's not an economic project, it's a project of influence. Russia doesn't have this economic relations type of mind. It has only the type of mind of these, bandits from the 90s that flourished after the fall of the Soviet Union, which means that if you don't want to do what I want you to do, I'm going to force you. And this connects like to everything, to politics, to business, to influence. So yes, I would say that if the world does not understand that it doesn't need a dangerous monkey with nuclear weapons on Earth that can like diffuse anytime Russian leaders don't like something, or don't agree with something, I would say that it's gonna end very, very badly. Because now what I see from the world leaders is that they are trying to postpone the inevitable, I would say, because people don't want to suffer the same as Ukrainians suffer now. However, if Kremlin succeeds in Ukraine, and if it kills all of us, it's going to go further.
Thank you for that, Katerina and Veronica. And what you already mentioned is very important, and it's the reason why the next segment here is 30 minutes. And it doesn't have to be 30 minutes of screening of a talk between Timothy Snyder and Yuval Noah Harari. I really advise you all to watch this, and maybe because there's a couple of segments we don't maybe not even need to fill the 30 minutes totally, and we can have a discussion if time allows. But it really speaks to why this is so important, and that Putin can't be allowed to win or be seen in any way to win, especially for these reasons you mentioned, Veronica, about emboldening other authoritarian type leaders who now seem to be more on the rise, both worldwide, basically. So thank you both. Stay safe wherever you may be, and thanks for sharing. And
I hope it will be helpful for others to understand what's going on in our country, and to raise awareness in other countries. Spread the word about that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks for your help, and would be lovely to see you again at some point in the future, next event maybe. Bye.
Bye.